Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. In this lecture, you will learn about some of the basic information and the knowledge about the acids, base, and the salt. So let's start with the simple definition. What are the acids? So an acid, like example is given over here. This is the hydrochloric acid, and this is defined as any species that increases the concentration of the hydrogen ions, that is called the acids. So this is HCl, and when it is dissolved in water, it dissociates into the hydrogen ion and the chloride ion. And if any species is going to release the hydrogen ion concentration, that is called the acid. And similarly, the base increases the concentration of the OH ions, and this is an example of the sodium hydroxide. And when it dissociates into the OH ions and the sodium ion, and it is going to release the OH ion concentration, that's why this is called the base. So this is very simple understanding to differentiate between the acids and the bases. The third one is the salt, and the salt actually is the compound containing an ionic assembly. And here it is an example of the sodium chloride having the ions of the cations. These are the sodium ions and the chloride ions. So an ionic assembly of the cations and the anions, that is after the neutralization of the acid and the base, it is called the salt. So salt is having the cations and the anions without any uh, identity of further releasing the hydrogen ion concentration or the OH ion concentration, and that is called the salt. And here, this is an example of the neutral salt, and of course, we have other types of the salt, acidic in nature or the basic in nature, but up to your content. This is the sufficient knowledge to understand. This is the salt having the both cations and the anions ionic assembly after the neutralization of the acid and the base. So this is one of the example I am going to show over here, the neutralization reaction. That means the reaction between an acid and the base. And here acid is the hydrochloric acid. And why it is called the acid? Because when dissolved and it is dissociated into the hydrogen ion and the chloride ion. That's why this hydrogen ion, due to release of the hydrogen ion, it is called the acid. And this is the potassium hydroxide. When it dissociates, it is dissociated into the potassium ion and the hydroxyl ion, and that's why with the release of hydroxyl ion or the OH ions, this is called the base. So potassium hydroxide is the base, hydrochloric acid is the acid. So what would be the reaction between the acid and the base? And because this is the positive ion, this will going to react with the OH ions, positive and the negative. When it reacts with the OH ion, it will form the water. So simply water is having the two hydrogen, one oxygen, one hydrogen is there, another hydrogen is there. So it forms the water after the neutralization of the H ion and the OH ion. So what would be the another product? That is the potassium ion is going to react with the chloride ion. It will form the, like this compound, this is called the potassium chloride, and this is called the salt. So here, this is an other example of the neutral salt. So this is the all about the neutralization reaction, all the formation of the salt with the reaction of the acid and the base. So this is you will learn today in detail the pH scale, and it ranges from 0 to 14. And these are few of the examples are given over here. And like in the battery you are using at home, attached with the UPS, having the pH around 0 because this is a strong acid you are using in the battery. Similarly, stomach acid, lemon having the pH up to 2, tomato, coffee, milk, and the water is having the pH 7, that is called the neutral. Similarly, blood and the soap is having the pH 12, and because it is having the hydroxyl ion concentration over there, that's why it is the having the basic character. And bleach is also having the basic character. And these are few of the examples are given over here because you are using all of them at home, so you must better to understand what would be the pH of the product you are using at home. Now at 7, if the pH is 7, this is called the neutral pH. And from 0 to 7, these are called the acids, and from 7 to 14, these are called the bases. So if pH is given, you can easily differentiate what would be the acid and the base depending on the pH scale. So pH scale is important to differentiate between the acid and the base. Now, there is a whole range of from 0 to 7, these are called the acid, but particularly between 1 to 3 or 1 to 2.5, these are called the strong acids. And then from here up to 7, these are called the weak acid. Then you will reach the neutral point, and then after this one you will find some weak bases arranging the pH from 8 to 10, and then these are the strong bases if the pH is going to increase from 11 to 14. So right from here, so these are the strong acid, weak acid, then neutral, then weak base, and the strong base. So in the coming lecture, I am going to show you how to calculate the pH of any of the acid and the base, particularly with the strong acid and the strong base. So with this, I'm going to finish this lecture with the basic information about the acid base neutralization reaction and the pH scale. And please watch the second video about how to calculate the acid and the pH of the acid and the base, and further differentiation into the if there are acids having more than one hydrogen ions. That means if it is going to release more than one hydrogen ion into the water, or dissociate into more than one hydrogen ion. And similarly, if the base is giving more than two hydroxyl ion, then how to calculate the pH of the particular solution. So please watch the second video.